Hello students, welcome to the lecture on export documentation, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand the applicability of HRM model, discuss about various models, describe the HRM policies in various countries, understand the European model of HRM. Export documentation is far more than just shipping paperwork. It includes all of the important records of an international transaction. Using the correct trade terminology, clearly defining the transfer of interest and liability, selecting the right method of payment, and sending the best quotation possible are the keys to effective exporting. Documents used in international trade are a reflection of the understanding of the agreement between the seller, the buyer, and third-party service and regulatory agencies. It is vital for the seller to understand that any document produced with their name as a party to the document is totally responsible for the actions of the service provider in the course of their performance. The term export documentation is actually a relative misnomer, as most paperwork is really being prepared on behalf of the buyer and is used for customs clearance and other legalities at the port of import, and thus is really import documents. Export procedures. The export procedure is obligatory for community goods leaving the EC Customs territory, Article 161 Customs Code CC, with very few exceptions. This is due to the fact that this procedure must ensure the correct application of all export measures. Example, export restrictions and surveillance measures and payment of export refunds for agricultural products. The export procedure foresees in principle two stages. First, the exporter declaring presents the goods, his export declaration, and where necessary, his export authorization or license at the customs office responsible for the place where he is established or where the goods are packed or loaded for export. Subsequently, the goods and a copy of the export declaration are presented to the customs office of exit, which satisfies itself that the goods presented correspond to those declared and supervises their physical departure. Goods exported by rail, post, air or sea, the customs office of exit may be the office component for the place where the goods are taken over under a single transport contract for transport to a third country. Example, port, airport, railway station. Differences between exporting and domestic business. The basic intent of a quotation for international trade is the same as it is for quotes made in the US, but the rules and procedures are different. The following are examples of the difference between international and domestic quotations. Trade terms. Domestic sales use trade terms such as FOB factory as defined under the Uniform Commercial Code of the United States. One of the benefits of this trade term is that title of the goods passes to the buyer at our dock. When businesses engage in international trade, they cannot rely on the Uniform Commercial Code or domestic trade terms and should use the trade terms recognized by international traders, the Incoterms as described in Module 6. Methods of payment. Where open account or cash in advance are the primary ways businesses have of collecting domestic accounts receivable, they may not be as common in international trade. Equally as common in international trade are letters of credit and drafts. The document preparation and procedures on these consignment-controlled shipments require careful analysis and handling. Methods of packaging. Shipping goods internationally exposes the in-transit product to risks it would not otherwise encounter. among the greatest risks for damage to goods in foreign trade are theft, environmental risks such as heat, cold and moisture, transportation by ocean freight or rail, and lack of mechanized physical handling equipment in some of the lesser developed countries. There may be certain documentation required in international trade that would reflect the proper packaging, packing, handling and stowing of goods in order to satisfy the importers' requirements as well as their governments. Methods of shipment. Businesses normally ship goods by mail, truck or air freight to their customers in the United States. In international trade, truck shipments are limited to Canada and Mexico, and most processed food products are shipped by air or ocean freight. Air freight differs only in the bill of lading used. Meanwhile, ocean freight can include drayage to move ocean containers to your facility, railroads to get the cargo to the port of export, and another drayage trucking to export your products to the ocean carrier at the pier. Because these modes of transportation differ a great deal, particularly in the area of carrier's liability, they need to be understood thoroughly before making a quotation. There are specific documents for international shipments that vary in detail, handling and distribution from the domestic equivalent. Insurance covering damage or loss. The seller has primary responsibility for loss or damage to the goods, in most cases, all the way to the port of unloading in the foreign country. Insurance coverage is therefore a must for all international transactions. Insurance certificates are required for proof of coverage on many exports, especially those that are being paid under a letter of credit. Validity period. The validity period of an international quotation is usually 90 days. This allows the buyer to arrange for payment and any import permits that may be necessary to make the purchase decision of your product. Any changes to the quotation during that time must also be reflected in the documentation. Import laws in the foreign country. Before making a quotation to a buyer in a foreign country, it will be necessary to determine what restrictions exist. Common considerations are availability of exchange, country of origin of the product is offering, import permits, certificates and inspections. The importer may also have documentary requirements in the destination market that must be matched with the exporters prior to customs clearance. Banking fees. Unless the importer uses US dollars as their currency, international sales generally begin with payment by the buyer in their own currency. The buyer's bank will then make arrangements to pay the exporter through a US bank in US dollars. The banks charge a fee for this process, part of which will be for the seller's account. These fees vary depending on the method of payment being used. Justification for export promotion activities. Governments can assist businesses in the private sector with a wide range of services, from simply providing information about current opportunities in the world market to giving specialized assistance to design and implement marketing programs and sales campaigns abroad. The export development approach clearly requires more effort, resources, and persistence than the simple traditional export promotion approach. One consequence is that export development cannot always be fully adopted given limits that might exist in many countries. In many developing countries, the business community of private exporters may need assistance to make appropriate contacts after they have done market research and gathered information. This actually involves a number of complicated actions and considerations that should be examined in greater detail. The export promotion and development strategy of a developing country will set the stage for determining the level and type of trade linkages with the international market. Policy formulation and implementation of export promotion measures. The keys to successful national export promotion and development programs are government policy decisions that affect export trade. Two sets of policies affect foreign trade management in general and export promotion and development in particular. Foreign trade policies and other policies with direct influence on foreign trade, policies that regulate other economic activities but at the same time influence the general performance of foreign trade. Basic concepts and definitions of foreign trade policy. The foreign trade policy of a country refers to policies and practices that affect and regulate import and export operations. Foreign trade policy includes many laws, decrees, regulations and procedures that are often adopted for different purposes. Such policies will affect foreign exchange, imports, exports, foreign investment and international relations. The trade promotion policy of a country is comprised of programs and measures that promote and develop trade with other countries. It includes all regulations and practices that will increase exports. Other policies include the National Development Plan, monetary policy, fiscal policy and practices, and price controls and investment policies. Promotional measures and their implementation. The range and intensity of a country's export promotion activities will depend on a number of factors: human and financial resources, the nature of products that can be exported, the characteristics of foreign markets, the experience of organizations responsible for implementing these activities. A variety of organizations or entities can implement activities, and the main entities will be the governments. Other entities may carry out related complementary activities. However, certain activities require specialization in export promotion and development and should be undertaken by the TAPOs. Export promotion strategies. Export promotion strategies are part of trade promotion and should focus on enterprise, industry, and national levels. Enterprise level. Some parts of the business community in developing countries have been unable to significantly increase export volumes on their own for the following reasons. A limited number of commodities are available for export. Industrial production of goods is limited by the lack of downstream activities. There is dependence on one or two key export markets and supply sources, and this does not give enterprises an opportunity to develop products according to the standards of more developed markets. Enterprises lack export readiness, which might be due to unwillingness to venture overseas because the domestic market offers comfort and security. Transitional economies need a lead agency to drive the effort towards becoming exporters. National level. The government sets the overall economic direction and trade development strategy. Establishing the export dimension of this strategy in terms of appropriate economic instruments and export promotion measures is critical to national export performance. Therefore, the design of relevant trade policies is the key to a successful national export promotion program. Institutional infrastructure for export promotion in India. Institutions engaged in export effort fall in 6 distinct tiers. At the top is the Department of Commerce of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. This is the main organization to formulate and guide India trade policy. At the second tier, there are deliberative and consultative organizations to ensure that export problems are comprehensively dealt with after mutual discussions between the government and the industry. At the third tier are the commodity-specific organizations which deal with problems relating to individual commodities and/or groups of commodities. The fourth tier consists of service institutions which facilitate and assist the exporters to expand their operations and reach out more effectively to the world markets. The fifth tier consists of government trading organizations specifically set up to handle export-import of specified commodities and to supplement the efforts of the private enterprise in the field of export promotion and import management. Agencies for export promotion at the state level constitute the sixth tier. The Export Industries Division is responsible for development and regulation of rubber, tobacco and cardamom. The division is also responsible for handling export promotion activities relating to textiles, woolens, handlooms, ready-made garments, silk and cellulose fibers, jute and jute products, handicrafts, coir and coir products. Summary. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learnt in this lecture. Documents used in international trade are a reflection of the understanding of the agreement between the seller, the buyer, and third-party service and regulatory agencies. Shipping goods internationally exposes the in-transit product to risk it would not otherwise encounter. The seller has primary responsibility for loss or damage to the goods in most cases all the way to the port of unloading in the foreign country. To a great extent, export development can concentrate on product adaptation, that is, use of existing production capacity to manufacture new products when better markets are found for those products than for traditional products. The keys to successful national export promotion and development programs are government policy decisions that affect export trade. Industrial production of goods is limited by the lack of downstream activities, which does not allow enterprises to produce differentiated products for exports or provide some form of export diversification. The Export Industries Division is responsible for development and regulation of rubber, tobacco and cardamom.